The National Economic Council has finally met on the rollout of palliatives for Nigerians to cushion the effect of the removal of fuel subsidy and the single exchange rate policy. And it was interesting to hear the outcome of that meeting. My guest is not impressed and has some ideas on what should have been said during that meeting and who should have been part of those deliberations. Meanwhile, our focus on the FCT takes us back to that second NEC meeting and hear these palliative measures for ourselves. A lot of them seem to be dependent on the conscience of government officials, which gives many Nigerians pause. But before that, we have an update on the major stories from Nigeria's presidency. This is Dateline Abuja. Hello and welcome to Dateline Abuja. I am Kayla Magwa. Let's kick off with our Abuja wrap, a look at the major stories from Nigeria's presidency.
President Bola Tinubu has ordered a review of the 8,000 Naira conditional cash transfer program, which is to provide some relief for the most vulnerable households in the country. In a statement signed by Dele Alake, the special advisor to the president on special duties, communications and strategy, the president also stated that the cash program is just one item among several within the relief package. The president also directed that the whole gamut of palliatives package of government be unveiled to Nigerians. President Bola Tinubu has reaffirmed the resolve of ECOWAS to raise the funds needed to fight terrorism and other forms of insecurity in the sub-region. The president, who was the ECOWAS chairman, stated this after a meeting with the presidents of Benin, Niger and Guinea-Bissau, where they reviewed the security and political transition in Mali, Burkina Faso and Guinea. The four presidents also made a commitment to re-engage the three countries at the highest level towards accelerating the transition to democracy there.
We have no problem raising funds, and we have all the instrumentalities to do that. So, concerning our design and engineering of our own finances, we believe we are capable of raising necessary funds to combat terrorism and insecurity in the region.
Vice President Senator Kashim Shettima is appealing to members of the 9th Senate to support the administration of President Bola Tinubu, describing him as a leader with a genuine interest to transform the country. A statement from his office states that the Vice President made the appeal when he received some of his former colleagues who were in the State House to pay him a courtesy visit. According to the statement, the Vice President describes President Tinubu as a good man, urging the former senators to rally around him and support him. The statement quotes him saying, "I want to assure you that I will work with you in the interest of our nation. What binds us together as a family and the nation supersedes whatever divides us." The Vice President, Senator Kashim Shettima, has reiterated the determination of the Tinubu administration to continue to develop economic policies and programs that will drive investment and create more jobs, especially in agriculture and the digital sector. The Vice President gave the affirmation when the board and management of the Nigerian Economic Summit Group, led by the chairman, Mr. Olaniyi Yusuf, paid him a courtesy visit at the presidential villa. While advocating for a quarterly mini-summit between the NESG and NEC, a statement from the office of the Vice President reads, "The President is determined to redefine the meaning and concept of modern leadership. Rest assured that we will continue to develop policies that will drive investment." Meanwhile, the Group Chief Executive Officer of NNPCL, Mr. Mele Kyari, is blaming the increase in the price of petrol on market forces. Mr. Kyari told State House correspondents after a private meeting with Vice President Kashim Shettima at the State House in Abuja that supply of the product is assured, and this will eventually drive down the pump price of PMS. He assures Nigerians that it will soon experience stability in supply and pricing.
Supply, when you go to the market, you buy the product, you come to the market and sell it at its ongoing, its prevailing market price. Nothing to do with supply. We don't have supply issues. There are a robust supply. We have over 32 days of supply in country. That's not a problem. What I know is that the market forces will regulate the market. Prices will go down sometimes it will go up, but there will be stability of supply. And I'm also assuring Nigerians that this is the best way to go forward so that we can adjust prices when market goes. I don't have the details this moment.
The House of Representatives has confirmed the appointment of the service chiefs nominated by the President. The confirmation comes days after that of the Senate. However, unlike the Senate, which carried out the screening exercise in plenary, the House had set up a committee for that purpose. Meanwhile, the lawmakers rejected an amendment to a motion calling for suspension of the new price of petrol, pending the outcome of an investigation by the House. In the wake of the avalanche of disapprovals from Nigeria following the Supplementary Appropriation Amendment, some federal legislators have been defending the 70 billion naira provision for the National Assembly for working conditions of lawmakers. The lawmakers are also reacting to the increase in the pump price of petrol, calling for the setting up of more refineries in the country. And the Senate is asking the federal government to urgently suspend the Transmission Company of Nigeria's tender for the World Bank-funded National Mass Metering Program Phase 2. The Senate says the action has become necessary to undertake a comprehensive review of the procurement criteria, which must prioritize local manufacturing and assembling of prepaid meters to boost employment generation and economic growth for Nigeria. The resolution of the upper chamber follows a motion by federal lawmaker, Senator Victor Ome, on the urgent need to protect local meter manufacturers in the ongoing national mass metering program of the federal government. Senator Ome says he is worried that the ongoing World Bank-funded mass metering program seeks to promote foreign companies' participation as against competent and qualified local meter manufacturers, and this will ultimately result in loss of jobs and revenue.
The Senate also notes that the members of the Association of Meter Manufacturers of Nigeria, AMON, are capable of producing world-standard smart meters. Hence, the Transmission Company of Nigeria, TCN, and the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission, NEC, under Phase 1 of the mass metering program of the federal government, issued the association, after a competitive bidding process, a letter of no objection to award 4 million meters in 2022. Worried that the ongoing World Bank-funded NMMP, that's National Mass Metering Program Phase 2, seeks to promote foreign companies' participation against competent and pre-qualified local meter manufacturers, will ultimately result in the loss of jobs and revenue.
The National Economic Council has reached a decision on palliative measures for Nigerians after a second meeting which was held at the council chambers of the State House in Abuja and chaired by the Vice President Kashim Shettima. Briefing State House correspondents after the 6-hour meeting, Governor Charles Soludo of Anambra State says the council is urging government officials to reduce the cost of governance in their various fares, while the federal government is initiating a 6-month cash award policy for public servants. National Economic Council has also resolved that food items, grains and fertilizer be distributed by state governments at the rate acquired from NEMA. And the states are instructed to double down on energy transition plans, especially in the transport sector. Will these interventions work? Are they specific enough? Are they time-bound? Can we trust cutting down the cost of governance to these governors without legislation? Amid the smiles and pleasantries shared by the members of the National Economic Council lies a quiet storm, one that has racked the brains of these governors and Nigerians across the country. How to ensure Nigerians do not break under the weight of the removal of fuel subsidy and the unified exchange rate policy. After the much-needed prayers said by the Osun State Governor, the media is excused for the meeting to begin. 6 hours later, a contingent of governors brief on the resolutions of the council, beginning with the highly speculated cash transfer program.
The priority now might be to use part of the surplus to pay that. But there are also states that are with bumper harvest, and they could say, you know what? I want to deploy a chunk of this to implementing cash transfer and several of the other immediate programs. And that's why we couch this point that this is ultimately still a federation. And the various states and local governments and federal government are at different levels in terms of their fiscal space and fiscal capacity. So, states, local government, federal government, depending on their resource, if the federal government decides to do the same cash transfer, for example, we're recommending that they should do so using the framework of the states and local government that are nearer to the people, so to speak. That's basically that. So we didn't sit down there to begin to say, oh, okay, this one, your cash transfer will be like what is being bandied in the media, whether it's 8,000 or 10,000 or 1,000 or whatever. It will depend on what the state, if the state can afford it, and what they can afford. And I guess this is very important that we communicate this clearly.
He goes further to explain that the National Economic Council has questioned the integrity of state social registers and why an integrity test is necessary.
There is a big question mark about the integrity of the so-called National Social Register. If you are delivering any such national or federal program from Abuja, it needs to be delivered via the constituent governments that are there at the roots, and each will now generate using their own formal and informal mechanisms to generate a register that is comprehensive, that is, meets certain criteria that you can stress test, and you can call out the people in the village, and everybody will confirm that these are the vulnerable people, if you are targeting vulnerable people, as it were. So the integrity test is what is missing with that register. Many have described what is being counted as national register as either bogus. Some describe it as phantom. Some describe it as in all manner of terms. So we need to face the problem, the fact that we don't have a credible register, and get back to work on this.
Council says they are seeking to create a balance between investment and consumption so as not to just pump money into the economy at the risk of higher inflation. The consensus is a need to invest more in infrastructure, especially roads. Meanwhile, the Bauchi State Governor, Bala Mohammed, says food items will also be distributed to the states.
NEC engaged with NEMA, with the CBN, and indeed with the Ministry of Agric. And we have some buffer stock that is already there with NEMA. And the council has directed the states will be allocated immediately substantial portion of food items, grains, and so on and so forth for distribution, so that the prices of foodstuff will come down and it will be given at a subsidized rate or at the rate at which it is acquired from NEMA, because it is free. Of course, CBN also, because of their Anchor Borrower program, and the program they had in agriculture, they have a large stock of rice and other grains that are going to make available within 1 week, so that they will be distributed to the states. And the states are at liberty to give it at a subsidized rate, give it free, or sell it at the level that at least it will crush the prices of foodstuff, or bring it to the level of affordability, to the threshold of affordability by the common people.
Targets surpassed by the Federal Inland Revenue Service, anticipated wage increase for civil servants, as well as a cash reward policy for them and the payment of outstanding liabilities. Funding MSMEs with single-digit interest rates and the implementation of energy transition by state governments are also preferred by the council. In the meantime, the promise of compressed natural gas-run buses by oil marketers is addressed by the governor of Ogun State.
The marketers were determined that they will supply or provide 100 buses as a show of support to the federal government, that they indeed are aligned with the policy of subsidy removal. And they wanted to trailblaze by showing that example and hoping that other sectors will follow suit. They decided that they were going to buy the vehicles that are locally made. They were not interested in bringing in vehicles from outside the country because they felt that this would also at least help in terms of employment generation. And I believe that the problems they're having right now is that the supplier, the local supplier of the vehicle, has not been able to live up to the expectations. But I'm sure that they are still deeply committed to ensuring that they supply the vehicles.
A lot of the things that we've heard from the National Economic Council after this meeting has raised a lot of questions. and basically puts a lot of the decisions in the hands of government officials. The cash transfer program has to be done at the state levels based on their capacity. The social register at the state levels also have to be compiled by government officials at that level. Cutting down the cost of governance also has to be at the whims and caprices of government officials. Now, while these may raise a lot of questions, the National Economic Council wants Nigerians to believe that ultimately, if these rules are carried out, that prosperity will be abundant for all, asking all Nigerians to be patient in the face of the crisis they're facing as a result of these government policies. My guest on the program is an economist, Dr. Chijioke Ikechukwu, former chairman of the Abuja Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and MD CEO at Dignity Finance and Investment Limited. Dr. Ikechukwu does not believe in palliatives and believes the National Economic Council needs more private sector participation if it's going to make any positive impact on Nigerians and the Nigerian economy. Dr. Ikechukwu, welcome to Dateline Abuja.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure.
You know, the last time the National Economic Council met was at their inauguration, and we had a conversation at the time. You have always been averse to the concept of palliatives.
That's right.
So let's talk a bit about this second meeting now. This was the long-awaited meeting, or this was the meeting that was going to ensure that the palliatives to cushion the impact of the single exchange rate and the subsidy removal. This was the meeting that was going to say, this is what we're going to do to cushion the impact of this on Nigeria. How do you feel about this, the outcome of this meeting?
First of all, it's an improvement of the previous. This time, we have seen that the state governments have been involved in the solution, finding solution to this particular problem. But there's still a little problem in this solution we think we have found. The solution is the fact that we're going to be relying on the state social registers to be able to distribute monies. These registers do not exist in the
Professor Soludo said, I heard him say that the National Social Register lacks integrity.
That's right.
And he said that we're going to have an integrity test.
Okay. That's for the national. We're not talking about relying on the state registers.
But the National Register is basically a collation of state registers.
That is not going to happen. You know why it's not going to happen? It's not going to happen because we have seen situations where registers are to be built up. Names are duplicated. Names are included. The first one will start with your first name and your surname. The next one, the same person, they will start with your surname and your first name. People who don't even exist are going to come into that particular list. That is just the integrity test we're talking about, and which, obviously, they will not pass. That is the problem I have with that. We may have to look at other ways of making sure that these monies get to these people.
Let's talk a bit about some of the other solutions that were preferred by the National Economic Council.
Yes.
One of them is the fact that whether they're doing cash transfers or whatever palliatives will be dependent on the capacity of the state. So Professor Soludo, again, we heard him say, no, what we did at this meeting was decide that states would plan what they want to do to their people. We cannot legislate for them because we don't know how much they make. What do you make of that? You know, that particular idea?
As far as I'm concerned, there is no solution in this. There's no solution because these are states that are owing their workers for many months. These are states that have owed their pensioners for many months. These are states that have not paid many allowances to their civil servants for many months. So how are they going to come up with this? Because they don't even have the capacity. Even if they had the capacity, there is nothing to show that they really want to reduce the cost of governance. A lot of things will need to change for us to actually make the people, the citizens of Nigeria, to benefit from whatever thing we want to achieve in saving money from subsidy in order for the people to benefit from those. From the meeting that took place yesterday, I haven't seen enough that will actually translate to the benefits that the people will have. Now, we talked about paying some allowances to civil servants. There are there are millions of people who are not civil servants. How are they going to get their own palliative from this? What about if I'm not a civil servant? if you pay me today and the thing increase, well, of course, if you pay some money into my account, how does it solve all the multiple problems that already exist in the system? So it is a situation where we need to look at everybody being a beneficiary. And for everybody to be a beneficiary, we're not going to be looking at the civil servants we've been looking at. We have to look at what are these people, what are Nigerians spending their monies for? Monies are spent for education. Every school right today will want to increase their fees just because cost of running those schools would have increased. So what are those things people are paying money for? Education is one of it. Hospital is another one. People spend a lot of money for their sick ones. So is there any way we're going to say, okay, for hospital, for this kind of treatment and things like that, you're not going to pay anything, walk into any hospital to get your treatment? It is happening in many countries, so they can actually happen here. People can go into hospitals, get treatments, and walk away. People can take their children in primary school and secondary school at least to that level, and they pay nothing. That way, the burden, of course, if we're talking about the long run of getting electric cars and people buying electric cars and buses of electric nature, they will also help. But in the short run, what will an average Nigerian benefit from? If you continue to talk about civil servants, how much will you even pay them that will cover the cost of living? The cost of living is so high. So we talked about leakages that have happened in the past. We have still not seen enough things to be able to do to stop all those leakages. Now that we know that our revenue base is still incomplete coming from there, we have not been able to reach the quota given to us by OPEC. We need to do everything to get to that revenue, to that quota, to be able to be sure that we're going to continue to even increase our revenue. Once that revenue is increased, of course, our foreign reserves will increase. We're able to fund some of the obligations, foreign obligations that we have. If we're able to fund these things, exchange rate will start coming down. Of course, the foreign direct investments that are already beginning to come will continue to come. When we have enough of this, exchange rate will continue to come down. So the reason why the fuel price is increasing is also because of exchange rate. And so if exchange rate comes down, and then we ensure that our refineries work. You see, we treat this refinery issue as if these are impossible things. Why have they not been working? Nobody's asking that question. Why are we saying when the new one, the private refinery starts working, then we'll start having? What happened to our own? What are the problems that are impossible for us to solve? So once our refineries are working and the Dangote refinery begins to work, we have enough fuel. We won't be talking about the issue of fuel price and all that. The price will obviously go down.
So is NEC getting it right?
Well, NEC should involve more of private sector people. You see, when you see the constitution of how the NEC is constituted, you see that these are all government people. These are all politicians who actually will want to take a decision that will favor the states or favor them as governors. The organized private sector are not there. So we need to involve organized private sector people. We need to involve experts into that. If you want to create other committees that will even feed NEC on what they want to discuss, let us have that. People that are being beaten by the cost of production, by the cost of running their businesses, they're not there. And if we're picking them, we don't go to the high-level people to select, to say, okay, let the likes of, say, Dangote come and be part of NEC. No. The average small and medium entrepreneur has to be there. The organized private sector of, say, the chambers of commerce must be there. Manufacturers Association must be there. Then we know we have constituted enough of economic council. But right now, we still have politicians there.
Well, we do have to wrap it up here, and I'm sure this is a conversation that's going to continue for a while. But thank you so much, Dr. Chijioke, for being with us on Dateline Abuja, and good luck with all the work you have ahead of you.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure.
Thanks to my guest and to everyone who spoke to us today on the program. Have the National Economic Council set the right tone? Are they going to deliver? Can we trust them to do what's right in their different spheres of influence? Only time will tell. There is quite a lot of disappointment as to the generality of the decisions by the council, especially since Nigerians are facing specific issues that need specific time-bound solutions. So we ask again, what should these palliatives be? Will they be distributed fairly? Will there be accountability and transparency in its disbursement? Should the palliatives be physical or non-physical, as suggested by some experts? Is the word palliative a trigger to the Nigerian who's been hearing about palliatives for years and never received any? How will the integrity test of this social register be done? Meanwhile, years of poor economic policies have taken a toll on the country's over 39 million micro, small, and medium enterprises, which contribute 46.3% to Nigeria's economic output. The Nigerian has no choice but to wait as they look to the National Economic Council to enact policies that will ensure these new realities produce the long-term desired results. That's Dateline Abuja this week. Please let us know the happenings in your neighborhoods using the social media handles showing right now on your screen. Thank you so much for watching. I am Kayla Magwa. See you next time.